Awesome. Thanks, Marshall. All right. Hi, everybody. Today is May 22nd. This is the CALPADS Wednesdays Q&A. My name is Alex Gandhi, and I'm a data analyst at CSIS supporting CALPADS. Driving for us today will be Mr. Gary Gerwer. Hi, Gary. We're going to move on now to announcements. And starting off, end of year submission has opened. We are currently within the window. The initial deadline is July 26th. And as a reminder, the goal would be to be error-free by the July 12th date. And that is according to our suggested milestones. And if you are not familiar with our suggested milestones, highly recommend that you take a look at that. That is in our user manual. We will be using that July 12th as our metric to find out which LEAs still have errors and see if you are considered to be at risk for meeting the deadline for end of year. The final deadline will be August 16th, and CELPA approval is required for end of year 3 and end of year 4. And there will be no extensions for that deadline. So August 16th is final. Moving on to 72. Flash 272 came out just a few hours ago, and it talks about the importance of populating the initial US school enrollment date. And there are a couple things that we want to clarify because I think we saw some chatter about it. So we want to make sure that we address this right off the top. So first of all, the field name shows kinder, but really the TK students are included in there. TK students should have that field populated. So just be mindful of that. And the other thing we wanted to touch on is that SDNR validation, SDNR 654E3. That was just enabled last week or so. However, the validation replaced an old validation that we had, which was our SIMF 60 E3. So it's not technically new validation. It's the same trigger logic. It's just that we had to switch it from triggering on SIMF to now trigger on SDNR so that it would trigger to the correct LEA. And so that was just why we needed to enable this new one. And then another clarification on that validation is that it isn't checking that the initial US school field matches what is in CALPADS. It is instead checking, looking at the student's whole enrollment history for the student and looking at the earliest enrollment, right? TK, kinder, whatever it is. And it's making sure that the initial US school date that you give us isn't after that earliest enrollment. So for example, if the student had a TK enrollment of August 2020, but the initial US school entry date that you gave us has a date of 2024, this error would trigger. CALPADS is still going to accept an earlier date because the student can come from a different state. They could be in a private school. That's still allowed. It's just making sure that the date that you give us isn't after what we know to be true already based on the enrollments for that student. So I hope that clarifies some chatter that we saw. And then I think that was it for me. I don't know if the SPED office had any announcements on trainings or anything like that.
Nothing specific. We just had the last roadshow yesterday, which was the statewide virtual, 540 people, I think 130 questions, and Alex, you were tremendously helpful, so thank you. But other than that, I don't have anything.
And then Martha Angela.
Hello? Nothing from me. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I got the double mute. Gary, if you want to navigate to the known issues, that is up to date with the release that went in yesterday. So we have all kinds of good fixes that went in. The other big exciting news for me, I was really waiting for the SENR 606E4. That's our old Cert 132 friend. It is finally turned back on. So you should be seeing those errors, although as I was listening to the roadshow yesterday, Brandy apparently has been giving you guys tips on how to find those ahead of time before that error was turned back on. The other announcement there is Plan 637E4 is permanently turned off for the remainder of end of year, so it's not coming back. And with that, I think it's all settled down. All the CDDs are, I think where the whack-a-mole game is complete. So we should be having a pretty stable submission from here on out. We're noticing that the revisions are a lot faster than they were that first week. So hopefully you're not waiting too long to get new snapshots if you're actively in there working. And that was all I had today, Alex.
Awesome. And Sean, CDE, no updates there?
No updates here. You covered them all. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Alrighty, so we're going to start off Q&A box with Mika Q1. Says, can you please tell me if the Universal Meals Program Free for All will be extended to the 24-25 school year? I don't know that.
I think it continues. There was the letter that went out last year before, when we talked about the universal meal, but because we haven't sent any communication to say that it's not continuing, I think it does. Do you know, Sean?
I don't know this one, Martha. I'm sorry. I would agree with you, but I don't know. I can check with Paula to make positive. But if they can submit a service ticket on this one, that would be great.
All right, Mika, if you can please submit a ticket and we'll escalate you to the CDE. Moving on to Marcy, Q1 shows, can the certification status tab on the home welcome page be updated to show more than 5 rows? Would be helpful if the system could be updated to show at least 10 lines on each of those status pages like the view submission page has. I think they looked at your CR, Angela.
Yeah. I did submit a change request for that to fix 2 things, to have more than 5 rows on that home screen and have it sort by date correctly. Right now, it's not sorting well. So as Gary's got up on the screen, you have to click the second and third pages to get to those other announcements, which is really annoying. So I think it was approved already, and it should be a pretty easy fix. So hopefully we'll see that change soon.
All right, moving on to Barbara from Pacifica. Q1 says, please address the new flash that says the student's initial US enrollment date cannot be earlier than the initial CALPADS enter date.
Says
I
the
think
opposite of that, right?
Yeah. I hope I covered it sufficiently, but the validation isn't saying that it cannot be earlier. It's just saying that it cannot be. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, Gary, it's the very last page, I believe. It says it cannot be greater than the earliest enrollment. So it cannot be a date after the student's earliest enrollment within CALPADS, right? Because CALPADS shows this student started in California at X date, but you gave me something that was greater than that, that was after that. And so that's where the validation comes in. But if you give us an earlier date than what CALPADS shows, CALPADS will accept it. Amber, Q1. Does getting a C or higher in the second semester of chemistry validate the first semester of chemistry if a D or F was earned? I'm needing to know if we can check the AG completion box when a student graduates if a D or F was earned in the first semester of chemistry and a C or higher was earned in the second semester. I don't know. I mean, personally, I think an F would be no, right? Because they didn't master anything. They failed the class. I don't know if a D, but I don't know that we have that in writing. I don't know. Because this is a local metric that you have. It's not something that CALPADS is going to be validating, right? I don't know if anyone else has anything to add. Rebecca says, yes, it validates as This is only for sequential courses. You need to check out the UC office of the president website or speak with your high school counselor. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rebecca. We're going to move on to Olivia. Question 1. Our LEA is in the process of changing the name of one of our school sites. Is there a problem with us using a name that starts with an is it a hyphen? Or, yeah, apostrophe, yeah. Is there a specific location we would be able to look, supply, or superintendent for documentation?
There's no specific location for documentation, but that does need to go through our office director. And there's a process for that. And so that would be the best person to work with. And that goes to our CDE offices for CBIDs.
Okay. Moving on to Kim from Humboldt COE Q1. Are there any different business rules for submitting CTE course completion for SPED students? Do we just report their hours for the full year as well as completion status? I'm not aware of any difference in CTE requirements. No. And we don't collect the hours for anybody. Again, that's just the local metric that you're using to make sure that you're tracking for any student that they must meet that 300 hours. But it says, do we need to put it in SACE? I don't know.
I do believe that they might need to put it in SACE, but that's a separate vendor and system from us. So they would need to work with. Oh, Brandy's here. Sorry. They would need to work with their SPED director to be able to determine that information. But then also, is it going for all students? Like there should be a tracking system for all students, not just their special education system, their special education students, and what that looks like at their LEA.
Yeah, and as far as I know, SACE doesn't report that information in their data submission.
All right. We're going to move on to Audrey. Q1 says, we are running into Plan 625 errors for students where their Disability 1 code does not require a degree of support, but Disability 2 does require it. Is this a known issue or should we submit a ticket?
Ticket, please.
All right. Get a ticket on that one. Moving on to Melissa, Q1. I don't have any errors for the initial US school enrollment date. Should I do the happy dance or do you think I will get errors later? Latest revision is from today at 10:39 a.m. And then Jenny is saying that she says, I would check your data discrepancy page to be sure. Our 345 errors don't appear on our certification page, but do on our data discrepancy page. That's interesting.
I heard that. I got a ticket on that too. They're
We
getting
need
the
to-
DDs, but it's not a cert.
We need to escalate that.
You'll be seeing it soon.
Be a
Angela.
timing thing, Angela, right? The timestamp that revision may have actually run prior to the.
They should all be caught up by now.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I thought we worked. I know you had saw that one a few days ago, Angela. So
No, I haven't seen that it's not on the certification screen.
oh, okay.
All right. So we'll probably have a new bug on that one, but your validations, if it's not on either one, right? If it's not on your certification screen or your data discrepancy screen, then I would be doing the happy dance if I were you. Oh, and then my Thandi bot was saying you can still do a happy dance. You can never have too many of those. That's what I would have said. So yeah.
And just a heads up, make sure when you toggle to end of year 3 on the data discrepancy screen, make sure you click that apply filters button. Otherwise, it doesn't load the errors.
Okay. Question 1, Jenny from Whittier. Flash 272 emphasizes the need for the initial U.S. school entry date be populated accurately. However, SCNR 654E3 triggers on any student, EO, I'm guessing that's IFIP, EL, who has the incorrect start date. Is there any way for it to only trigger on EL students, not all students? These errors also do not appear on the cert page, just DD page.
Oh boy.
No, that error will trigger for all students, whether they are EO, regardless of their CELA status. And that is partially to coincide if you have students that are migrants. So that date is tracked because you know the yes or no indicator that then states if they have been enrolled in school less than 3 years. So that date will remain for all students.
Just keep in mind though that that cumulative indicator is a little bit different from the initial U.S. school enrollment date because the cumulative indicator is from 3 to 21, whereas the initial U.S. school enrollment date is only for K-12, K-12, so it is a little bit different.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandy.
Moving on, Rochelle, Q1 says, new Flash 272, initial U.S. enrollment date cannot be earlier than the initial CALPADS. Even if the date in CALPADS says 8/1 for TK first enrollment and we submit with our SINF 8/13 of the same year, I have 5,630 of these errors, and this is what I'm seeing is the pattern. Right, so that initial U.S. enrollment date cannot be after the earliest enrollment for the student, right? So in your example, the student started August 1st in TK, but you gave us an initial U.S. start date of August 13th. So that would trigger the error because CALPADS is saying the student started earlier than that. Their initial U.S. school cannot be after what you've already told us the student started. So that's the discrepancy. You would need to make sure that, I don't know if you can mass change it in your SIS. Oh, it says, so it is sensitive to the day and not only the month and year. Exactly, yeah, it's looking at the date as a whole. So the earliest enrollment in CALPADS versus the initial U.S. enrollment date that you've given us. It cannot, the initial U.S. cannot be after that earliest enrollment. Anonymous, Q1. I have a ticket in already for this. We are getting an error on the initial U.S. enrollment date. However, the student record submitted was not from our LEA. Do we need to reach out to the other LEA to remove their erroneous initial U.S. enrollment date? The error triggered on an EO U.S. born student. I'm trying to think if they can edit a SINF record that they didn't enter.
You could also just add a new one, right? Is that error only looking at the most recent SINF?
I don't believe so. I think it's looking at any SINF that overlaps the qualifying enrollment.
Yeah, well, there's a ticket in, right? So we can follow up on that.
Yeah. So Anonymous, if you could rename yourself so that we know who you are, and then we can follow up on the ticket just to be sure that the error is triggering correctly. Suzanne says the error triggered on a SINF record from many years ago. It could be possible because the SINF records they continue to be effective, right? If there's no new SINF record added. So if the latest SINF record for the student was from 2 years ago and there's been no new SINF record added, then that's the most recent for the student. And then Amber says, I find the same. I have students that started the year with us and changed to a new LEA. The new LEA has the wrong date, but I get the error in my DD. And so there's another ticket on it. Okay. So we'll just take a look at the tickets then and respond to make sure everything is on the up and up there. We're going to move on to Laura Q1. I just submitted a ticket because the SSID extract is giving the US school entry date in the 17th field, and the 18th field has a student's EL status date. Okay. I don't know the field numbers off the top of my head, but we'll take a look
I
at
just
that.
pulled up the specs, and it says field 17 is the US school entry date. So Gary, do you know how to get to that? It's on the system documentations page.
Yeah.
She's talking about the SSID extract. So if you go to the CALPADS system documentation page.
Mm-hmm.
And no, the CDE CALPADS system documentations page.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Not the
So
user
many
manual.
places. So many places.
There you go. And then in that top section, it's then CALPADS extract specifications 15.2.
Oh, there it is.
There you go. It's chapter 4.
So it says 18 is this.
Earliest. And then, and what did she say it was EO?
She said
Or
it was
the EL?
EL status.
It is required of EL students only. I mean, so, but I just wanted to clarify that they use the initial US school enrollment date to determine whether or not the student actually has to take the English language arts Smarter Balanced test. Because if they have not been enrolled for 1 year, they don't have to take it. That's what we use that piece of data for. We do not use it to calculate whether they are an eligible immigrant, which is that they've been enrolled cumulatively less than 3 years. I just want to clarify that.
And I would say the SSID, this extract was, I think, changed last year or the year before because people wanted to see what was the earliest enrollment date versus what is the date that I'm telling that's on the SIMF that I put in as their earliest initial. So that's why 17 and 18 are there. One represents the earliest enrollment that the CALPADS has on file versus the last one, 18, is that value that you give us in the SIMP file.
Yeah.
And Laura,
I was just gonna say, so that's the expected behavior, right? It's working as designed.
Yeah, Laura's last comment there says that that last field there is pulling the EL status date, not the US school entry date. So I'm glad you submitted the ticket, Laura, because that we'll just have to take a look at that. If you give us an SSID example, that would be even great. So if you didn't do that, can you just reply and just give us an SSID example? And then we'll start troubleshooting that.
Okay. So it's not even the SIMP record, it's the ELAS record? Status start date?
Apparently.
That's like number 13, English language acquisition status start date. That's where it's supposed to be anyway.
All right. So, and Laura, if you could put that in the ticket, just because we won't be able to look up the kid right here on the call. We're going to move on now to Terry from Irvine. Q1 says, end of year 3, Cert 129 staff. Is this a new issue? It doesn't appear CALPADS is calculating correctly. Should we submit a ticket? We have 30 students who fit this profile. Cert 129, expected attendance days is greater than total enrollment dates.
Is this the one where they had to have been enrolled prior to May 15th or whatever it is, and then the dates are calculating wonky?
Yeah, it's not wonky. It's, I mean,
Oh, not wonky.
it's,
You're right. It's
it's working how it's
operating
supposed
as
to.
intended.
Yes. So what happens is those kids that enrolled late in the spring, if you haven't updated their exit date for the end of the school year yet, the CALPADS does a little bit of math, and it kind of assumes that this is an error. So once you post your exits, the error will clear up.
If Kyron's on the call, we probably should update this to add, because the error list has that piece of information about if they enroll in May.
Well, scroll down, because this is a copy of the error list.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Okay. Colleen, Q1 says, I corrected the US enrollment date in an older SIMF today, and that fixed the error. Awesome. Yeah. So it is, yeah, I figured it was looking across SIMF records. And I don't know, Colleen, if you can answer, was it a SIMF record that you submitted, or was it a prior LEA? Just curious if it let you update a prior LEA's record. And if not, that's fine. Well, oh, it was yours. Okay. Thank you. Lily from Sweetwater. Oh, no question. Just no happy dance. I have 13,086 errors for initial US enrollment date. Yeah, I was hoping it was a current known issue. And in the data discrepancy, I do see there are duplicates. And I wonder if it's not necessarily duplicates, but it's just multiple SIMF records that have the wrong date. Yeah.
I wonder if this is happening to students that you start with one enrollment date and then later you change it, but the initial school enrollment never got updated to reflect the change that you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to move on to Charlene from Cupertino. Q1 says, to confirm the age requirement in Flash 272, the age for US school entry date can now be 3 years and 10 months, no longer 4 years old. Gary, do you mind bringing up that flash again?
It's the popular question today.
Yeah.
Does it say age on here?
Yeah, there's one validation at the bottom after that one, Sim 59. That one's validating age. So the date that you give us cannot be less than a student that is 3 years old and 10 months. I don't know if that was changed or not, but that's the validation. I'm going to go on now to Marina, sorry. Q1 says, we have a list of students that start at TK before their 4th birthday. Is the initial enrollment date their 4th birthday then? Because when we input the first day of TK, we were getting an error, or has this changed?
We did have a validation that they had to be 4, but then didn't we change it and that we said you have to be 4 by September or something?
That's correct, Martha.
So the question is, can they have that date before they turn 4?
Yeah, because the flash that went out says that they can't be less than 3 years and 10 months old. So, and they have to be in grade TK. They can't be in grade preschool. So if she's still getting that error, I would say she needs a ticket because we need to look into it.
Moving on to,
I was going to say they could enroll kids, but they just weren't going to get ADA for those kids until they turned 4, right? So they could have enrolled them when they were younger. And so the question is then the clock shouldn't start ticking until they turn 4 for their initial enrollment date, perhaps. But
they won't get ADA until they turn 5.
Not until 2025 will they get ADA for 4-year-olds.
Oh, okay. Interesting question.
moving on to Sidra from Stockton. Q1 says, I have SENR 654E3 error for a student who has been with us since August 1st of 2021. Do we update all the previous demographic records to the correct initial US enrollment date or just the one for our current year? I have a total of 3,104 errors for that 654E3.
It's too bad it's not looking at the most recent because that's going to be a lot of work for people.
No, I don't think they have to fix every SIMF record. I think it's just the ones that overlap this academic year, right? Right, Alex?
That was my
That's right,
understanding.
but that still could be a few, I guess. Yikes.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not the most recent. It's all those that overlap the academic year. And you have to look at the student details screen and look at the effective start dates to figure out which ones they are. The DD screen is just going to point to the enrollment. So you'll see multiple lines of the SSID, but it's going to be the enrollment record that's qualifying these student information records. So you have to go to the student detail screen, and it could be, depending on how you submit your data, 1, or it could be 4 or 5. I've seen 8 so far. So just got to manage that student information data.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that can't hear Nate?
He's awfully quiet.
He's quiet, but I could hear him.
Oh, okay. No problem. As long as everybody else can hear.
No, I
Just
apologize. I am quiet because it's new air, so I'm probably not speaking with a tremendous amount of confidence.
You're also just kind of a soft-spoken guy, Nate.
All right, moving on to Kathy. Q1 says, can we get a list of our students with the error and include the student's first school enrollment date? This would help fix our SIS. It is so time consuming to click back through the enrollment record in CALPADS. So that SSID extract would be helpful, I believe. You can get a list of the students who are triggering the error by going to your DD screen and clicking on, oh, Gary has it up on the screen. There's that button there that says data discrepancy error extract, and you can select that specific error. So you can get a list of those SSIDs, and then to get a list of the earliest enrollment that CALPADS has, you can just generate the SSID extract and do it for using a date range. So you can do, from the beginning of your school year to today, and that'll give you every single kid that was ever enrolled with you. And that has that field that is the earliest enrollment. I think that we just saw it. It was field 17 or something that's coming from the SENR. Just as a caveat, though, that doesn't automatically mean that that's always going to be the student's initial US state, right? Some kids may come from private schools, some kids may come from out of state. So that's where your data management comes into play. But at least this will give you a rough estimate of what CALPADS is at least expecting. Jonathan, Q1.
Alex, just to note, this is Jonathan's Q2. I answered his first Q1 and I thought I was leaving it up on the screen, but it went away.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll skip Jonathan for a minute. Barbara's Q2, we'll skip that. Marcy's Q2, we'll skip that. Anonymous, I don't know if this is the same Anonymous. I'm going to say it's a different one. Yeah, Q1 says, maybe this was already answered, but if LEAs are getting so many SCNR 64 EF3s errors for students who are not EL, and it's a required field for those who are EL, why is it making LEAs change this for students who are not EL? Seems like a ton of extra work. Sean, did you want to take that? I think you answered it last time.
I'm sorry, my microphone button didn't want to work. It would flash and then go back to mute again. I was like, yeah. Thank you, Anonymous, and thank you, Alex. So yes, the initial enrollment date should be populated for all students, not just EL students or students with an EL C-list status. And we did mention it a little bit before, and that's because that date is also used for students with a migrant status that are first entering into the US. However, as there's a yes or no validation indicator, and along with that date for your migrant students. And as Brandy mentioned, that yes or no indicator is cumulative of 3 years, and it's also only for K through 12. So there is some calculation that the LEA may have to do on their own, especially when it comes to that program type.
Thanks,
I
Sean.
miss anything this time?
I think so. We're going to go on now to Rebecca from Fresno COE. Question 1, why does school completion code 320 and 330 both include HiSET? What's the difference between the two codes now that 330 was updated to reflect California Certification of Proficiency?
So Rebecca, I actually kind of know this one. So it's the HiSET for the math and the language arts subtest for HiSET is the difference in the 330 versus the 320, which is all.
Okay. So 330 is a subset of the HiSET. 320 would be all of it. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Kathy, thank you. I did hear about the enrollment extra. Okay, awesome. Connie, Q1. Is there any way these can be warnings for end of year and not fatal, so we have time to make these fixes? This is a tremendous amount of work to be done with end of year, summer school, and start of year. And I am willing to bet money that's the SCNR 6. I forget the number now.
Is it 5.4?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we have turned that one on and off a few times. Sometimes it wasn't working correctly, and I think one time it was just that people said the same thing. Oh, this is too much right now. So I know that they really do want you guys to get this data cleaned up sooner rather than later. So as of now, it's a fatal.
Marissa, Q1. Would it be possible to get the guidance link flash regarding the collection of ADA for TK students and the students aged during TK? I know there's a flash. I don't know the number. There was a flash not that long ago.
And there's probably an FAQ on the universal
Mm.
the K page related to LCFF, when they can start claiming apportionment for those kids.
But I believe so. I think there's slash 257 that talked about it. Oh, and Rebecca
put the FAQ in there.
sharing is caring. Awesome. Thank you. And then Colleen, I think we had already a Q1, or was that not a question? Was that just a comment?
There aren't that many more tickets or questions, Alex. You can just go ahead and take hers.
Oh, okay, cool. So Colleen Q1 says, last week I asked if there was an error with the cumulative enrollment count on 121 because ours seems to be low. Thanks for pointing me to the mapping guides, Martha. I looked more closely at our data and found that 1.1 included TKs and the 1.21 does not. I'm mentioning this to help others who might have similar confusion. Also, the 1.1 mapping guide may need to be updated since it still says grade levels KN through 12, but did include TK for us. Thanks. So we'll look into the updating the mapping guide for 1.1 for sure. I think there was a bug on the 121, right, Angela?
Yep. It wasn't defaulting to include TK, so we're going to get that fixed. So TK will be part of the default grade span.
Oh, look at that. 1.1 is updated. TK through 12. Maybe there's a different section that we missed, Colleen. So if there was a different place where you saw that we didn't update it, let us know. And there is a bug on the 121 based on that default grade level. So we'll work on that. But yes, good pointer for anyone else out there. When you're running the 121 report, just for now, do that little extra step, make sure that you're selecting all when you're before running the report, so that TK can be included in the default grades. Suzanne, Q1. Sean, we were told that the less than 3 years indicator was to include preschoolers as well. And then Ethan says, yeah, Brandy just said it was for ages 3 to 21, regardless of grade level. And then Suzanne says, different than the TK through 12 grade initial US school entry date. This discussion is fuzzy.
Yeah, and just so you know, that guidance has not changed. It has literally been that way from the very beginning. Initial US school enrollment date is the first date enrolled. In fact, the definition clearly says that it's the first date enrolled in TK or kindergarten in the United States, whereas the enrolled less than 3 years indicator is in any school within the United States, have they been cumulatively enrolled, and that includes private schools and preschools because they had to be 3.
So Suzanne, I think you're confusing the EL conversation with the US, with the enrollment.
Can we just let's talk through this a little bit, and Sean, chime in here. But they're getting errors because the US school enrollment date, the initial US school enrollment date, is after the very earliest enrollment in CALPADS. So they're getting that error, and they're getting that error for any student for whom that initial US school enrollment date is populated. Okay, and so some of those students may have been EL when that US initial enrollment date was populated, but are now IFEP or English only. Maybe it has changed. So that's possible if they made corrections. But I guess my question is whether it's, and I think what they're asking is it appropriate to trigger that U.S. school enrollment error if the student's current status is not EL? I think that's the question. And maybe that's one that the CALPADS team could take a look at, whether or not it's appropriate.
I hear you. I hear you, Brandy, and I agree. But I would also say then that's where they're using the ODS extract, and instead of changing the date, they are using the SSID extract and then just picking up that date, so they don't have to do a calculation or change it, especially if the student has changed like schools. But Suzanne, you can gladly put in a ticket and we'll take a look at it.
Alrighty. Another anonymous. Q1 says my SIS Aeries closes out certain programs one day prior to the next enrollment school year. Thus, nothing allowing these records to be reported to CALPADS via the GER5 error. Any tips? I think that would be a ticket with Aeries support. I believe that there's a way that you can change it so that the extracts aren't populating that date automatically. And if anybody in here uses Aeries and I misspoke, please chime in here. If you can type in that question or your experience.
My experience is the same, Alex.
Okay, thank you. It's been a few years.
I understand.
Kathy, I think this is the second question. So I'm going to skip that. Jenny says yes, 100%. I don't know what that's about. And, oh, just more comments. Q2 from Kim. Jerry, Q1 says, hi, Alex. Hey, Jerry. Says, I wanted to get a clarification on what Brandy mentioned earlier regarding the importance of the initial U.S. enrollment date to determine if a new EL student has to take the summative LPAC. Not required if student hasn't been enrolled for 1 full year. Was it LPAC I heard, since I noticed the flash mentions CASP?
No, it's the Smarter Balance assessments. Yeah, it's not the summative LPAC. It's the Smarter Balance assessment. So they shouldn't have to take an English language arts assessment for the academic year if they haven't been enrolled the entire academic year.
All right, now we're going to move on to question 2s and above, and we're going to start off with Jonathan, 3:29 p.m. Q2 says, are our McKinney-Vento students graduating with only 130 credits considered to be exempt? If you're exempting them from your local graduation requirements, then yes. The exemption indicator is for those students that are meeting the minimum California requirements and not needing to do your local graduation requirements on top of that. Q2 from Barbara from Pacifica at 3:32. Why would you be looking at the initial U.S. entry date for all the SINF records? Why not just the most recent?
So for end of year, we pull in all data into the snapshot that was effective during that academic year and then evaluate it. So it's not all SINF records, it's just those that have dates that were in this current academic year.
Marcy's Q2 at 3:33 p.m. says, semi-happy dance, as only 2 with initial start date errors, but I see that historically both of these have had several different initial start dates from all of the districts students attended over the years. How can we tell which of them, or is it all of them, that are triggering the error to know which to fix? And she follows up saying, I fixed the ones that overlap the current year enrollment, but it didn't clear the error, so I'm guessing it's looking at prior year ones.
So I pulled up one of your errors, Marcy, and it looked like you had just recently, a little like an hour ago, fixed it. And so, Gary, if you go to the data discrepancy screen, I'm going to point out a feature on that screen that will help you troubleshoot when you're changing things throughout the day. Try end of year 4 and then click apply filters. There you go. So what I wanted to point out is under that summary grid, it tells you the run time, start time, and the end time. So if you go to your page, Marcy, it looked like yours finished around 1 o'clock today. So keep an eye on that. It should clear up.
Then you can do a full happy dance.
I only checked the first error, though. I didn't check the other one.
Q2 from Kathy. It says, that, I don't know which one to read first. I'll just go in order. Will the district of choice error come back? Oh, and this is end of year 2, SENR 320E3.
That one's a goner. It's not coming back for this current academic year anyway. Sean, that's the one you were going to log a change request for. We have to do some additional noodling on that one before we bring it back next year.
Yes. So yes, you're correct, Angela, and all of that. Thank you.
Q2 from Kim at 349 says a student earned 45 hours in a CTE course in the 22-23 school year, their first year of participation. The same student earned 60 hours in the same CTE course for 23-24 school year. Is this not enough hours to qualify as level 1 participant? This was their second year of participation. Don't they need 100 hours for introductory participant? Sounded like a word math problem. I don't know if there's a requirement for CALPADS, at least. The student is going to count as a participant with us in the CALPADS report just simply because they had a CTE course, right? Just in that student course section completion, they had a state course code that was between the 7,000 and the 8,999 range. And just because of that, they're going to be counted as a participant within CTE. We're not looking at hours, but I don't know if there's any local. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add on to that one?
Yes,
Thank
please.
you. No problem. So, Alex, yes, you are correct. However, for your dashboard indicators, I would ensure that your hours calculation is correct, and for that information, you would need to review the CCI dashboard indicator mini guide.
And Rebecca is chiming in here saying that the requirement is 300 hours for the CTE pathway.
Right. Yeah, that's accurate. We used to capture number concentrators, right? And concentrators were essentially that the student had completed at least 50% of the pathway and then was enrolled in the subsequent course. That was the criteria. It wasn't hours based, just so you know. But we don't capture that in CALPADS anymore. So like Alex said, it may be a local requirement.
Amber has an FYI at 351. My SENR 654 show in my DD and not in my recent CDD that just finished running. Yeah, so I believe we have a few tickets on that probably. So stay tuned at our known issues, probably coming soon. Jerry says, thanks for clarifying, Brandy. Sin, Q1. Do we not have to worry about summer EBT data pool number 4 and 5 if our school ends during data pool number 3?
That's in the CALPADS regional, the March regional. And so, I'm sorry, what was the dates again? 4 and 5. If
the school ends.
Yes. So if you're ending And unless you have newly enrolled students that are eligible, that would be when you would worry about the 31st, the July 31st and the August 31st pulls for the summer EBT. And then for August also, it depends on when your school starts back up for the 24-25 school year, because you're capturing your previously enrolled students then there.
Mary Masters, Q1, says, how should we handle it when a new student to us reports a different race than CALPADS already has? I think you just
update their race and their SIM.
You just give us your new SIMF with whatever race they identify with now, and there's no validation that's going to trigger on our end that's looking to make sure that those are all consistent. So you just report your data. And Kim says, so confused. I'm not sure, Kim, what it was.
The CTE hours.
Ah. I think for that, it's just, bottom line is that the requirement, if there is one, for labeling a student as a participant is a local function that you're doing, because you're not actively reporting a participant to CALPADS. There's no code in the student CTE file that says participant. You should maybe talk to your CTE admin or whoever oversees that department within your district. If not, maybe your COE can provide, or your COE. I'm sure there's a CTE program office at CDE who might be able to also give you more guidance. But in terms of our CALPADS world, there isn't any kind of hour reporting that needs to happen, especially for participants.
Em, can you go ahead and put in a ticket and put my name on it, please?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for Charlene's question. This is funny as I don't know what. I was like, is this Gary's computer?
No, but I made it the whole hour and it didn't crash. I think we found the problem was there was my computer. Our IT guy logged in and did his magic, but he found that I had Lenovo computer updates happening scheduled for the 3 o'clock hour every day. And so he turned that off and I made it the whole hour.
And what's really funny, Gary? What's funny, Gary, is that middle of the Q&A, that same pop-up happened for me. So I'm going to have to open up a ticket with Sam.
Charlene's Q2 at 3:59 says, I noticed this week that around 3:30 every day, I am not allowed to request SSID using OM. The new SSID enrollment screen freezes when I try to enter the enrollment start date. The OM becomes available later in the evening.
I saw a discussion about that on the listserv. Somebody was summarizing that it was a Chrome issue and that she had better luck in Firefox. So something about the expected receiver school, something that Chrome wasn't liking that. So try a different browser and see if you get better results.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, strange.
The last Q1 is from Chris. Since CALPADS can already determine the earliest enrollment date, wouldn't it make sense to auto-populate that field and allow us to update as needed? This particular data point is pretty time-consuming to fill out for every student. I just don't know if we're in the habit of pre-populating data.
Yeah, and it's not going to be 100% right every time, right? Because if they came from out of state or private school, we don't know what their initial U.S. enrollment date was.
And it's interesting that you asked that question, Chris, because before the SSID extract only had what the initial school was that people put in, or the earliest date, I think, and people were wanting to store their own date there. And when they downloaded the SSID extract, it was wiping out what they had manually put in their system. So that's why we had to give you guys both dates. So seems like we can't win with either one of those.
Anonymous saying CALPADS and ETS students syncing issues are happening, affecting the testing team. Anonymous, we're going to need a little more info. If you could put in a ticket and give us SSID examples, we can try to get to the bottom of that. And now the last one from Eric. It says, we have students who completed their 11th grade and got the student seal by literacy indicator. Should this be reported when they are completing their 12th grade, or can they be reported at the end of 11th grade? I believe that the criteria for a validation is that they're a graduate. So if you're giving us E230 100, then you can give us that indicator. Am I remembering
You're
that
correct,
correctly?
Alex.
Cool.
You're correct. And they also have to submit the form to CDE, so they actually get those seals. So, and it states the same thing.
Awesome. All right, we're done. Thank you, everybody, Sean, Brandy, everyone else at CSIS for chiming in and helping out. We will be here next week.
Bye, everybody.
That sounds good. I got it from here, guys.